Welcome to DFS by the Numbers with your host, Brady.
What is up, everybody? Welcome to DFS by the Numbers. These are my final thoughts for UFC Vegas 84. We are back, first live stream of 2024. Really looking forward to it. Really looking forward to some fights. Finally, we have some fights on Saturday and a really good card. Obviously, the card did take a major hit, honestly. Losing Manel Kopp versus Mateus Nicolau. Probably one of my favorite top two of the week. So looking forward to that. And it's now off. Manel Kopp came in at 129.5 pounds, and they said the fight was going to go on initially with Kopp forfeiting 25% of his purse, and then like an hour later, they decide the fight's off. I think Kopp pulled out due to a sickness. He said he was dealing with like a virus, so that sucks. That was my biggest bet of the card, and my only bet of the card thus far, so that hurts, but there are some spots I'm looking at. Kind of a tricky card from a betting perspective. We have some really chalky lines. We have a really violent card here, but I tweeted it out, on Tuesday. Silva Wilson opened up minus 1,600 for the fight doesn't go to decision. Nolan Moda opened up minus 1,400 for the fight doesn't go to decision. Ferreira Haas opened up minus 1,400, fight doesn't go to decision. And then Ankalaev Walker opened up minus 1,000, fight doesn't go to decision. So I'm not sure what's going on, but violent card for sure. It's going to be hard to find some spots with lines this chalky. So, but as always, we'll talk about it before we get started. You guys can please leave a like on the video, subscribe to the channel, check out Prize Picks, use promo code DFSBTN, get yourself a 100% deposit match bonus up to $100. And then I also posted a Prize Picks video earlier in the week. But yeah, guys, I say we hit up the chat here. What is up? Hopefully you guys had a good break, enjoyed some family time, enjoyed some time off, but I'm sure you guys are with me in terms of, glad to be back. Glad to be back. We got Chris, first one in here. Let's go. Brady is back. Yes, back and really looking forward to 2024. 2023 was my best year by a mile and hoping to replicate that. Really trying to keep strategy the same this year as it was last year, taking some shots on some big plus money props, being conservative, but at the same time taking those big shots and hoping to come away with a really big 2024 here. We got my guy Uncle Weezy with a big oi. What is up, Uncle Weezy? Uncle Weezy has been feeling under the weather for like the last 3 months. So hopefully you get better, Uncle Weezy. Rest up. And I'm sure you're going to be resting up, enjoying some fights tomorrow. We got Eric. What's up, Brady? Good luck this weekend. Good luck to you as well, Eric. Nice to see you in here. We got Art MMA. Are you watching Better Aviv versus Smith? I am not. We got DB in the chat with the fire. What is up, DB? We got Sander. What is up? From Belgium. What is up? Let's go. We got Forrest Brady, a.k.a. Neo, a.k.a. the Beastmaster is back in your life for 2024. I like it. Kopp effed us. Yes, Kopp did F us. He definitely effed me. It was my biggest bet of the week. Big plus money bet. I didn't go for the money line. I went for the inside the distance. I thought it was a great spot. Nicolau finishing all of his losses. I thought Kopp is going to want to come out there and make a statement. Even after the weight miss, I still like the play. It's just the fight is now canceled, and my only bet of 2024 is canceled. So it's gonna be a light-ish card for me this week, but next week I've already looked into half the fights. I'm loving next week from a betting perspective. A lot of dogs sticking out next week for UFC 297. So no reason to really go out there and force things this week on a card where it's just madness. These lines have been out for 3-4 weeks at this point. They've gotten smashed. Some of this alignment this week is just crazy. So if you didn't get in early on a couple of these, nothing's wrong with staying away. We got Victor DeJesus in the chat. What is up? Brady in chat. What's up, Victor? How you doing? Marvin in the chat as well. Forrest with the spider. Hopefully no spider. There's not been many spiders. Wintertime has come around. It looks like the spiders seem to make their way into the house in the summertime. So right now, not a ton of spiders sneaking around. Manel smokes Mateus when they rebook the fight. Yeah, I think they will rebook the fight. I think it'll be the same exact matchup, and hopefully in the near future, like I could see them putting it on maybe with like the next couple weeks, so hopefully Kopp is recovers and feels all right, and hopefully they get this fight back on in the next couple weeks there. With Kopp out, that means Pantoja will probably fight Moreno again. Yep, probably. Probably the winner of Reno Royval. I don't know. The flyweight division's kind of wild at this moment. Like all these guys have already fought each other. It's kind of weird at this moment. The flyweight division. I'm Nolan KO1, Silva KO1 right there with you there. Elder in the chat. Lapis is worth a stab, Brady. Let's make this money. Yeah, so me and Weezy were talking for a while about the Lapis plus 3.5 point spread, thinking he can go out there and win at least a round, right? And Draftkings opened it up at minus 120, which makes no sense considering Lapis is like plus 250. So that sucks. Was looking at that plus 3.5, but I'm not sure if I'm going to touch it. The opening violence lines were terrible. Yeah, I'm not sure what they were doing. We got Mark in the chat. Save me, Brady. I'm at work. Thank God you're going live. What is up, Mark? Hopefully I can save you a little bit. I'm trying to make it as exciting as possible. Shootproof made it in here. Yes, best bet video will be out this. Oh, you're talking about the live stream? Yes, best bet live stream tomorrow, 4 or 4:30 Eastern time. Going to be going live every week, 2 hours prior to the prelims there. And Cody Blood Money won last year's best bet. Was able to get him his winnings there. So shout out to Cody. He will not be doing it this year. And I'm not sure if Lou's going to be doing it this year either. But we have a bunch of new guys this year for best bet, which will be fun. And then a couple of the same old guys. Nicolau Kopp is off. Yes, it is. Unfortunately, DFS by the numbers 2024. Glad you're back. Yeah, glad I'm back as well. All right, guys. I say we get into it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and be on the lookout for final content of the week. Going to be recording my betting breakdown video tonight. Probably post that tomorrow morning early on at 6 a.m., 6:30. And then, of course, the best bet live stream as well. All right, we're going to get into it. We're going to talk some spots. No bets as of yet, but I'm looking at a few spots so we can talk through them. We got Joshua Van going against Felipe Bunes to kick off 2024 and a really good fight to kick off the new year. We got Joshua Van as a very big favorite. We have Joshua Van minus 260. Felipe Bunes is plus 220. Joshua Van, very popular play this week. Joshua Van was sitting around minus 200. That was like Tuesday, Wednesday. And then all of a sudden he's minus 260, which that's too wide. Felipe Bunes, he's not bad. This is a guy in Bunes who's honestly well-rounded. I like his striking. He's very explosive on the feet. Really good striker. And then his bread and butter is that grappling. He has finished over half his wins by sub, and Joshua Van's only loss does come by sub, but it is hard not to pick Van here. I mean, Van, I'm really high on this guy, as many are. I think Joshua Van has a significant ceiling in the UFC. Like, this guy's only 22 years old. He's going out there and beating Zalga Zumagulov the way he did. That performance against Borjas in his last fight, where it took him a little bit to get going, but as the fight went on, he started just mixing up to the body, landing a ton of volume. He landed like 120 against August, 160 against Borjas. I mean, that volume's no joke. So I guess it all comes down to the game plan of Felipe Bunes. You know, if Bunes gets the fight down to the mat, he may be live for a submission. And that was like a sneaky prop I was looking at for this week, Bunes by submission, because I think that's kind of his path to victory. I don't think he's knocking out Van. Van is, you know, a very durable guy. And then I don't think he's winning a decision against Van unless you would like out grapple him and control him for 3 rounds. I kind of think if Bunes wins, it's by sub. So that was kind of a prop I was maybe looking at sprinkling, but it's a fight I think I'm just going to sit back and watch. It's a banger of a fight. It's a fun fight. Striker versus grappler matchup where, you know, Bunes can strike a little bit, but I think he'd be best served to get this fight down to the mat and expose Van's potential weakness in the ground game. I do think Van has made some improvements with the ground game, though. You know, that's probably all he's been working on, and he's only going to get better. So, yeah, Van for me, Van rightful favorite, but it's really hard to get to minus 260 on Joshua Van here. Got Uncle Wheezy in the chat, 0.25 units on Bunes by sub plus 525. I think that's his path, man. The sub. I don't hate that line whatsoever. And then 0.75 on the Bunes money line plus 220. Yeah, if Bunes grapples here and that hits, that's a great start for your Uncle Weezy. My gosh. So yeah, I don't hate it. I mean, that's kind of how I would play it if I was forced to play this fight. I'm not laying minus 260 on Joshua Van. I'll pick him to win by a decision, though. Van is going to blow it and get subbed. I could see it. Yeah, we always talk about, you know, that one parlay buster, right? And there's a couple guys that quite frankly could bust a parlay. Like Joshua Van can bust a parlay. Nolan can bust a parlay. Nolan, 6 fights, hasn't really fought anybody. So yeah, there could be a couple parlay busters on this card, that's for sure. And you know, parlays is the one thing I try to get away from in 2023, and I had a lot of success, not betting parlays, not betting chalk parlays. This week, I'm tempted because that's kind of what you got to do this week, right? You gotta do a chalk parlay if you wanna have anything this week, because everything's just so chalky for this card. It's ridiculous. But yeah, give me a Van money line, too wide passing. From a DraftKings perspective, I think Bunes 7,400. There's not a ton of dogs I like on DraftKings. Like Bunes, if he wins, I think he's going to be fairly low owned. Nobody knows who this guy is. And then if he does win, it's probably a sub, like I said. So Bunes on DraftKings is kind of where I'm going to be attacking this fight. But from a betting perspective, I think I'm going to sit back and watch this one. Never put bad fighters in a parlay. I agree. I hear you, DK. Good advice there. You want to bet on good, you want to bet on good fighters. And we'll talk about a couple good fighters as well. Hit the like button, guys. Come on. Yeah, do appreciate all the likes. And we will move on. So there are a lot of violent fights on this card, but there are 3 fights where I really do like violence, and this is one of them. And I kind of effed up. So they had the under 1.5 rounds for the Nolan Moda fight sitting at minus 180 for a while, like minus 180, 185 for literally like a week. And somebody put a big bet down on it because it went from minus 185 to minus 285 now. And yeah, I mean, the under 1.5, I think it hits, but it got completely smashed. When did it get smashed? It got completely smashed January 5th. So like about a week ago. So that sucks. And there's still some spots I'm looking at. Like I think like the fight won't start round 2 potentially, but it's chalk. It's like minus 162 best price for the fight won't start round 2. But it's hard to see this fight going 7.5 minutes, to be honest. Just with the way both these guys fight. We have a guy in Tom Nolan, 6 fights, has not really fought anybody. Like if he beats Nicholas Moda, this is going to be Tom Nolan's best win by a mile. And I'm going back and watching Tom Nolan's fights, and this guy leaves a lot of openings. He is very defensively irresponsible. He goes out there. There's this one fight where he's just standing and banging with this guy with no regard to his own safety. And, Nicholas Moda, although everybody's low on him, including me, I worry about Nicholas Moda for a ton of reasons. The one thing Moda does do, though, is he hits very hard. He's a power puncher. He has a ton of power. Hasn't really shown it a ton in the UFC, but outside the UFC, that's all he did. He put guys in the hospital, so many times. So Tom Nolan, speaking of parlay busters, minus 350 on a guy like Tom Nolan, who's just so unproven, so defensively irresponsible. It's honestly scary. So I don't know what I'm doing here. I like violence, but I mean, the fight doesn't go minus 1,200. The under 2.5 is minus 800. The under 1.5 is minus 285. The fight won't start round 2 is minus 162. I mean, what do we do here? How do we bet violence here? I'm not really sure. Nolan by knockout is something stupid, like minus 285. Minus 285 for Nolan inside the distance, minus 190, minus 240 for a knockout prop on Nolan. Moda by knockout is like plus 400. So yeah, I'm gonna take Nolan. I think you gotta take Nolan here just because Nicholas Moda, his confidence looks gone. I mean, that performance against Trey Ogden was the last straw for me with Nicholas Moda, and I was somewhat high on Moda, coming into the UFC, and then they gave him honestly a somewhat of a favorable matchup against Ogden in the sense that Ogden's not going to go out there and knock you out, and Moda fought scared. Like if you're scared of Trey Ogden, what is Tom Nolan going to do, right? So yeah, Nolan should win minus 350. I don't condone it, and I'm not sure I'm going to bet this fight yet. Under 1.5, maybe a potential parlay piece. And then, like I said, fight won't start round 2. Could be interesting, but it's chalky. From a DraftKings perspective, both guys in play. Both guys, I think, have knockout upside and early knockout upside as well. It's hard to see this fight going past 5 minutes. Both these guys, very defensively irresponsible. Nolan, 50% strike and defense. Moda, 52% strike and defense. And then Moda has probably one of the worst shins on the card outside of Phil Haas. So violence. And we'll see if we can find a way to play it there from a betting perspective, but nothing really like jumping out. But if you got in on the under 1.5 early, you did your job. You smashed the line by $1. All right. So yeah, we'll move on to the next fight. And this is the fight that everybody has been waiting for. And I've had this fight circled since the first week we were off. I've had this fight circled, and it's Weston Wilson fight week. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm a big fan of Weston Wilson. I think this guy is going to be exciting for as long as he lasts in the UFC, which I think this is probably his last fight. And I hope it is his last fight for his own health, because Gene Silva, I never thought I'd see it, but Gene Silva is a minus 900 favorite in the UFC. This is the same Gene Silva who was an underdog on the Contender Series. And I actually picked Gene Silva as an underdog on the Contender Series, but it was more like a shot in the dark pick where there was barely any footage of this guy. There still barely is any footage of this guy. He hasn't fought the best competition, and he's minus 900. So it just goes to show you that Weston Wilson probably shouldn't be fighting in the UFC, because, how the heck is Gene Silva a minus 1,000 favorite? It makes no sense. I worry about Gene Silva, to be honest. I really do. I went and watched the weigh-ins this morning, and Gene Silva, I think something's wrong with the guy. I mean, he scared me a little bit. Like, this is a guy that could potentially be in a horror movie. He looked possessed up there on the scale, and I kind of have a lot of concerns about what he's going to do against Weston Wilson in the cage. I mean, this guy's terrifying, Gene Silva. I think something's seriously up, and I'm kind of worried about him. He was like foaming out the mouth. He didn't look like he was there. It looked like he was possessed, basically. So maybe we'll see him featured in maybe The Conjuring 4, potentially. But yeah, that was scary. And I would not want to be locked in the cage with that guy. Poor Weston Wilson. My gosh. Poor Weston Wilson. I mean, getting locked in there with a possessed man. I mean, I feel bad, and it's not too late to pull out, Mr. Wilson. Fight doesn't go to decision, open up minus 1,600. Great, right? The under 1.5, minus 305. The fight won't start round 2, minus 152, which I actually think at minus 152, the fight won't start round 2 is not terrible. I see some people on like the over and the fight starts round 2. I don't personally get that. I mean, Weston Wilson has not seen a second round in his last 12 fights. And I'm not sure if that really should change here. He's going against Gene Silva, who, like I said, is possessed and foaming out the mouth. Striker versus grappler matchup. I think on the feet, Silva's going to destroy Wilson. And if the fight was to hit the mat, Wilson could potentially be live for a sub. That's his thing. So yeah, I think the fight won't start round 2. Minus 152. It's chalky. It's juicy, but Wilson's not seen a second round in a very long time. So that's kind of what I'm looking at for this fight. Fight won't start round 2. From a Draftkings perspective, both sides in play. Gene Silva, extremely expensive, 9,600, but I kind of feel like his floor is like a first round knockout, and you don't see that too often. Like, some of these Gene Silva props are crazy. So the fight doesn't go now, minus 1,400. It came down a little bit. Gene Silva inside the distance, minus 800. Like, you'd never see prices like that. So yeah, Gene Silva should smoke this guy. With that said, though, Weston Wilson, I think his path to victory is a first round sub, which is plus 3,300 on Bet365. I thought was pretty interesting. Like, that's his money line. He's not going to win a decision. He'll never win a decision. He has a 100% finish rate, and then I really struggle to see him knocking anybody out as well. So yeah, give me Gene Silva first round KO, and that's that. Is the Silva line accurate? It could look accurate. Like, Silva could go out there and flying knee Wilson in 30 seconds, so we could all be like, yeah, maybe the line could be wider, Maybe the line could be wider. Gene Silva looked like a legit serial killer on the scale. Yeah, I was scared. I almost like turned the stream off because I was terrified of Gene Silva. I mean, something's seriously wrong with this guy, and yeah, I think they might need 2 referees in there. Maybe Herb Dean. Maybe Chris Tione, maybe for the first fight ever, maybe put 2 referees in there, because I really worry for the safety of one Weston Wilson. Silva by sub for the value. Yeah, Wilson's been subbed a couple times. I could see it. He's been subbed 4 times. And Silva does have a couple rear naked choke, maybe a couple guillotines, something like that. I could see it potentially. Obviously, knockout's more likely, but Silva by sub could be something interesting. And then Gene Silva by rabies, I could see that as well. Yeah, really worried about Weston Wilson there. Weston Wilson by TKO. plus 2,000. The only way I could see him winning by TKO would be like if you got the TKO/DQ, maybe Gene Silva gets DQ'd. Watching Weston Will, I just struggle to see him knocking out anybody, to be honest. But maybe a DQ for Weston Wilson. It would be his path there. All right, moving on to the next fight. We have Farid Basharat going against Taylor Lapis. Another frustrating fight where a spot I had circled all week, and apparently everybody else did, was the Taylor Lapis plus 3.5 point spread, and it's a terrible price, to be honest. I mean, DraftKings has it at minus 120, which is just awful, considering Taylor Lapis is like plus 240, plus 250. So with that plus 3.5 point spread, Taylor Lapis would have to go out there and win at least one round on all three judges' scorecards. The only thing that worries me about that is, I've bet these point spreads before and I've had a lot of success, but there's times where I would be like, I want to bet the point spread and then pass, and then some of these scorecards do get pretty rough. Like if say Lapis does win a round and the judges score at 29-28, 29-28, and then one judge has it 30-27 for Basharat, like, the bet loses right there. So any bet involving the judges always scares me a little bit. And then now we have to lay chalk on it at a minus 120. So I hate it. I hate the price tag. I was looking honestly for like plus 150, with Basharat being such a big favorite, but that's not going to happen. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I was looking at that. I don't like this fight from a DraftKings perspective. Basharat 8,900. I'm not touching it because this is a card where I think we're getting a ton of big DraftKings scores, a ton of big finishes. In Basharat, the fight goes to decisions like minus 230, minus 220. So yeah, I mean, I'm not touching this fight from a DraftKings perspective. Even like Lapis from a DraftKings perspective at 7,300, I hate it just because a Lapis path to victory is a fight where he's stuffing takedowns, he's keeping it on the feet, he's outpointing Basharat, and that's not going to score anything. So even in a win, Lapis could score like 50 or 60. So I'm fading this fight. I'm not touching it. Wanted the plus 3.5, but it's honestly a crap price and nothing anywhere close to what I would play it at. It was plus money on Bet Online, I think, but that's gone. That's gone as far as I'm concerned. So yeah, not touching this fight. Under 1.5 minus 330, Silva to win, and under 1.5 minus 360. Yeah, that makes no sense, huh? So they're giving Weston Wilson like a negative chance to win the fight, which I think is pretty hilarious. Farid is a chain wrestler, though he could score well, potentially. I don't see him finishing him. I don't see him getting a ton of takedown. I mean, Lapis's takedown defense is very good. I just think I'd rather, play Marcus McGee, who has finishing upside, sub upside. I'd rather play Waldo Cortez Acosta, who I think knocks out Arlovski. I'd rather play, Tom Nolan, who has first round finish upside. Gene Silva, first round finish upside. I'm not saying he's a bad play, but on this card, on a card where I think there's a ton of early finishes, a ton of massive scores, I find it hard to get to Basharat personally. Anyone taking Jim Miller? Yes, everybody is taking Jim Miller. All right. Yeah, so no interest in that fight. Moving on, we got Marcus McGee going against Gaston Bolognos. Weird fight here. This is a fight where it pretty much all comes down to the game plan of Marcus McGee. And Gaston Bolognos is a very popular dog this week, and here's kind of why. So Marcus McGee is a striker. He's a striker and a very good striker, but so is Gaston Bolognos. And if these two go out there and strike for 15 minutes, Marcus McGee's not looking minus 240 or whatever he was, right? This fight's going to be a lot closer if Marcus McGee goes out there and strikes with this guy. And I went back and watched a lot of Marcus McGee fights, and Marcus McGee does not wrestle at all. In the UFC, I don't think he even has one takedown. The submission win he got against Journey Newson, he dropped him and then subbed him. And then he also had a submission win as an amateur, and same thing. I think he grabbed the next standing. So I don't think I've seen Marcus McGee shoot a takedown. And when we're talking about laying minus 220, 230, you would want him to go out there and wrestle, which could he? Yes, I think he could. And here's why. I think Gaston Bolognos' ground game is like the worst ground game I've ever seen. He can be taken down easily, and then once he's taken down, he has no ground game whatsoever. So in theory, I think anybody could take this guy down and sub him. So Marcus McGee, he does train at a really good gym, MMA lab, with some really good coaches, some really good wrestlers, some really good grapplers. So in theory, Marcus McGee could potentially take this guy down and sub him. I think that's very much on the table. It's just you don't want to be laying minus 220, minus 230 on a if, and I've done it in the past, saying if this guy does that, it's going to look easy, and then they don't do it. So all comes down to the game plan of Marcus McGee. Someone did hit me up saying they're close with MMA Lab, and Marcus McGee's been working on the wrestling nonstop, and that's good to hear. But he has to go out there and do it. So not touching the money line. What I don't hate though is a shot on Marcus McGee by submission, and I could see this happening in a multitude of ways. I could see a club and sub in this fight. I could see if he does go out there and grapple, I think he subs him easy. Like I think Bolognos' ground game is terrible, and McGee by sub is plus 310. Bolognos has never been knocked out. 2 of his inside the distance losses come by sub. So yeah, I think McGee by sub is kind of where I'd be looking at. It's plus 310, nothing crazy, but I think it's certainly a path of victory there. But he has to go out there and grapple, so we'll see. From a DraftKings perspective, I don't hate McGee. I do like some other fighters up there a little bit better, but I think he has finish upside. And then as far as Gaston Bolognos, I think he's very much in play because, like I said, if McGee does go out there and strike with this guy, he's not going to look 7,100. So I think Bolognos is certainly a very live dog, depending on the game plan of McGee. Dylan says, I don't see McGee wrestle either. I'm all over Bolognos on DK. Yeah, if he doesn't wrestle, Bolognos is going to look like a good play, I think. So we'll see. Gaston Bolognos by KO. I could see it. Neither guy's ever been knocked out, though, which is interesting. But that could potentially change here. Bolognos has a ton of power, ton of finishes by knockout. So we shall see the game plan of Marcus McGee. But like I said, you don't want to lay minus 220, minus 230 on an if. If he does this, he'll win. If not, he could still win. He could still beat Bolognos, but it's not going to look minus 220, 230, I don't think. All right. Moving on to the next fight. I'm really looking forward to this one. This is probably my favorite fight on the card, believe it or not. We have Matthew Semelsberger going against Preston Parsons, and it is the closest line fight on the card. And the reason I like this fight a lot is because it is a striker versus grappler matchup. Semelsberger being the striker. This guy, Semelsberger, has a ton of power. I think like 10 knockdowns in the UFC. Parsons on the feet is a walking punching bag. He's been knocked out before. I think Semelsberger is really live to knock out Parsons. On the flip side, Parsons is a guy that's a very good wrestler and a very aggressive grappler. This guy, Parsons, in 3 UFC fights, has 8 submission attempts. So we have Semelsberger, who's knocking guys down. We have Parsons, who's attempting like 8 submissions in 3 fights. I think there's a good chance for violence in this one. The fight doesn't go to decision. Actually opened at minus 325. It's now minus 175. The overs in the fight goes is a very popular play this week, but I think somebody's getting served here. I really do. I think on the feet, it's not even close. Parsons is super hittable, and Semelsberger with that much power, I think Semelsberger can put Parsons' head in like the 3rd row. And then on the flip side, Parsons, if he does get Semelsberger down, which he can, Semelsberger's takedown defense is terrible, 50%. Parsons is going to be looking for the finish nonstop. And I think Semelsberger is taking this fight on somewhat short notice as well. So if this fight does get extended to the 2nd to the 3rd round, maybe Semelsberger does slow down and Parsons really doesn't. So I could see a late Parsons sub. I think those late Parsons sub props are very much on the table. I could see a Semelsberger early KO prop in the 1st round. So yeah, I'm looking at something like that. I'm looking at maybe Semelsberger 1st round knockout. I think I saw like plus 215, something like that. And then I'm looking at Parsons sub 2, sub 3 at 1,100 and 1,800. So some big prices there on some of these props. And then of course the fight doesn't go minus 175. I think it's solid, and I think maybe it might even keep coming down. We'll see. We'll see what happens, but just been nothing but love for the fight goes here. From a DraftKings perspective, I love this fight. One of my favorite fights to target as a whole because Semelsberger, like I said, the striker, big advantage, big knockdown power. I think it can spark Parsons and knock him out very brutally. And on the flip side, Parsons, he has that wrestling. He has those submission attempts. I think a submission could be in play and some control time as well to go along with it. So love this fight. Nothing yet from a betting perspective. There are a lot of things I'm looking at. I'm looking at Semelsberger early knockout. I'm looking at Parsons late sub, and I'm looking at the under or the fight doesn't go. So lots of things sticking out. Haven't pulled the trigger on anything yet, but that's kind of where my head's at on this one here. Yeah, it seems generous. He seems generous. I mean, it opened up at -325, now -175. Striker versus grappler matchup. Both these guys super dangerous. Parsons has finished all but one of his wins. And the one win he didn't finish, he attempted like 6 submissions against Evan Elder. Some of those submissions, I'm not sure how he didn't finish that fight. But yeah, 90% finish rate for Parsons, 64% finish rate for Semelsberger. I think a finish is very much on the table here. Yeah, I mean, I don't know anybody that's taken Benitez, to be honest. Maybe, I mean, I think I saw one person taking Benitez this week, maybe one. Matthew Semelsberger has a better chance at beating Magnus Carlsen in a game of chess than beating Parsons in a fight. -165 Propaholic for the fight doesn't go to decision. I like that line a lot. Speaking of Propaholic, he will be on the Best Bet show tomorrow. Looking forward to that. But yeah, -165 is very solid. Nolan to win in round 1 or round 2, -225. Yeah, I think it hits, and it's a good way to get his price tag down a little bit. And Louise is saying nice line prop. Yeah, I like that. -165, -175. I don't hate it. I'll be playing violence in some type of way for sure. I'm just not sure how I'm going to do it yet. Am I going to play the fight won't start round 3? Am I going to play the under 2.5? The fight doesn't go, something like that. But I will have violence on my card in this fight for this week. Arlovski shocks the world. It would certainly shock me. That's for sure. That's for sure. This card has some steep odds. Just got to find 1 or 2 underdogs. Yeah, one or two of these underdogs will come through. It's just which one. Is it going to be Weston? No, it's not going to be Weston Wilson. Is it going to be Nicholas Moda, Felipe Bunes, Taylor Lapis, Gaston Bolognos, Arlovski, Phil Haas? You know, one or two of these underdogs or more are going to come through. It's just like which one is going to come through. I'm not sure. All right. But we're going to move on to what is now the main card opener. We've had the bout order switched up a little bit, losing the cop fight. We got Waldo Cortez Acosta going against Andre Arlovski. And I've said it all week. I don't think this fight should be sanctioned. And I've only said this like 3 or 4 times. And each time I've said it, you know, I've been right. I've been right. And the reason I don't think this fight should be sanctioned is because we have Andre Arlovski. He's 44 years old. He's almost 45. He's turning 45 in a couple months. And he's been on a decline for a while now, and he's still going out there and getting some wins. But if you look into his record a little bit deeper, like he's getting these wins in fights where, I mean, he's clearly losing some of these fights. He clearly lost against Tanner Boser. I mean, that was a horrible decision. I'm not sure what the judges were smoking there. Boser outlands him 68-34. I had to double check that. I mean, that's 68-34, and Arlovski wins the fight. I'm still butthurt about that because I did have a bet on Boser. I mean, I'm not sure what they were looking at there. The Chase Sherman fight, he won, but it was competitive. I thought he potentially could have lost against Carlos Felipe. I thought he potentially could have lost against Jared Vandera. He definitely lost against Jake Collier, I thought. So, and these are bottom of the barrel heavyweights. I mean, these heavyweights are terrible. Collier has been cut. Vandera's been cut. Felipe's been cut. Sherman, I think he might be back for like the 20th time, but I mean, come on. And then Tanner Boser is now a light heavyweight. So some of these wins are terrible. And anytime he fights somebody somewhat good, he's not only losing, but he's getting finished. Jairzinho Rosenstruck knocks him out. Aspinall subs him. DeLima subs him. And then what does it for me is his last fight. You know, getting finished by Rosenstruck, you know, that's fine. Getting finished by Tom Aspinall, whatever. Getting finished by DeLima, not the best look, but whatever. That's okay. Getting finished by Dontel Mays is the last straw. I mean, that's it. I think that's Andre Arlovski. And it just makes no sense. I can't imagine a world where Dontel Mays honestly finishes anybody in the UFC outside of like Josh Parisian. But he went out there and finished Andre Arlovski. I was shocked when that happened. I didn't bet on that fight for obvious reasons, but you know, getting knocked out by Dontel Mays is inexcusable, and it is probably, I think we've seen the last of Andre Arlovski. And if you're getting knocked out by Dontel Mays, I don't know what Waldo's going to do to us. So I mean, I think Waldo wins this fight. He's a big favorite though. You know, money's been pouring in on Waldo Cortez Acosta all week. He was -400, which honestly, that's generous. I think he's now -750. So everybody he's a popular parlay piece, rightfully so. What I'm looking at though is Waldo potentially by knockout, or Waldo to win in rounds 1 or 2, just because if Arlovski's not lasting 2 rounds with Dontel Mays, I don't think he's lasting 2 rounds with Waldo Cortez Acosta. So haven't bet anything yet, but I'm looking at a potential Waldo Cortez Acosta knockout prop. Not the best prices though, to be honest. -180, -175. Not the best prices, but we'll see. I like it. From a DraftKings perspective, I'm fading Arlovski. Even if he wins, he probably scores like 32 points, like a robbery decision. And Waldo, I don't hate him. I think he knocks out Arlovski in the first or second round. Don't tell me about that last fight. I want a reason to bet Arlovski. I like it. Mays got lucky. Let's be real. But yes, Arlovski is old, and a younger Arlovski doesn't lose to Mays. I don't know if he got lucky, because if you want to go back and watch that fight, Mays actually like hurt Arlovski badly at the end of the first round, and then he just completely knocked him out in the second round. So I don't know. It wasn't a good look. Waldo sub 14-1. Arlovski always begs to be submitted. He does, but Aspinall submitted him. Aspinall's a black belt. DeLima submitted him. DeLima's a black belt. I don't really see a sub, but maybe he taps the strikes. You never know. What does it cost to have blackmail on to get Vandera Sherman and 60-year-old Arlovski? Great manager. Just a great manager. And Lucas Bresky as well. If Arlovski wins this fight, I'll just assume someone drugged me and I'm tripping balls. Yeah. I think we talked about on the DFS show, Weezy, like the one path to victory for Arlovski is like a time machine. And as far as I'm concerned, you can't bring a time machine into the UFC Apex. So I'm not sure. 14 of Arlovski's last 18 have gone the distance. Yes, they have. They certainly have. The last time Arlovski got a finish was, I think, back in like 2016, like a very long time ago. It was maybe 2015. Yeah, 2015 was Arlovski's last finish win against Travis Brown. I think Arlovski has 0 finishing upside in here. Mays is dirt, to put it politely, I'd say. Good God, do not get you to try to bet Arlovski. Yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I think there's better dogs on the card. Don't see how you can make an argument for Arlovski unless Waldo pulls a William Knight and his controller gets disconnected. He ain't losing here. Yeah, something crazy would have to happen, like a big robbery or something wild had to happen. We got Tyler in the chat. Sports betting came legal yesterday. Heck yeah, love it. In my state, what's the first UFC bet I should play, Brady? Well, I don't know. I had my only bet of the card thus far was Manel Cop inside the distance, 1.5 units to win, 2.1. Loved Cop finish. Big part of my night there, and that fight's now off. So I'm kind of looking to find some other spots now. But there are certainly some spots that stick out. Chalky week, like Martin saying Tom Nolan and Waldo Cortez parlay. That probably comes out to like -220 though, right? So I don't know. It's a tough week. It probably hits though. All right, moving on to the next fight, we have the talk of the town, man. I mean, this is the talk of the town, and it was funny. Like we had a week or so off. We had 3 weeks off. Every time I open Twitter, it's like somebody's betting on Phil Hawes, and it still continued throughout this week. And I'm like, oh gosh, oh. But I get it. I mean, I get it, but oh gosh, oh. Very popular underdog Phil Hawes. I actually haven't really seen many people pick Bruno Ferreira this week, which is crazy. But it's a fight I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole. It's a fight I want nothing to do with, and here's why. Phil Hawes is the better fighter by a mile. That's why everybody's betting him. Skill for skill, it's not even close. Skill for skill, Hawes is -400 here, right? Skill for skill, Hawes is -400. If there were no knockouts allowed in MMA, Hawes would be -1,000 here, right? It's one of those. But the fact of the matter is, Phil Hawes has a terrible chin, terrible durability, and he's going against a guy who hits very hard in Bruno Ferreira. So it's one of those spots where Hawes probably does look like a massive favorite up until Bruno Ferreira lands one shot. Like anytime Hawes fights somebody with no power, he's winning, and he's winning convincingly. Knocked out, drawn, wins not finishing anybody. He beat Kyle Dawkins But in that fight, Kyle Dawkins hurt Phil Haas on the feet a couple times, which is crazy. He did beat Nasruddin Imavov. Imavov had Haas wobbling all over the cage like the entire fight. That was a crazy fight. He knocks out Jacob Malkoon, and that's it. So Jacob Malkoon, Kyle Dawkins, Tehran Win all have no power. Imavov does have some power. And then Kyle Dawkins, even in fights he's winning, Kyle Dawkins hurts Haas multiple times. Imavov hurts Haas multiple times. So it's scary. It really is scary to bet on Phil Haas. I get why people are doing it. I will not be one of those people, though. I will not. I could not look myself in the mirror. If I bet on Phil Haas and he gets knocked out, I would not be able to look myself in the mirror. But yeah, I mean, from a betting perspective, money line, you tell me to pick a side, it's got to be Haas at plus money. But at the end of the day, I can't trust him. Like, he's so untrustworthy. His durability is so untrustworthy. He's really good, but if you can't take a punch, how are you going to win? Like, he's like the Shannon Ross of the middleweight division. It's ridiculous. So yeah, I'm not touching it, and I'm not even touching a total. I'm not touching a prop. Nothing's sticking out because I could see a world where Phil Haas says, "Hey, I have a terrible chin, right? I'm going to push this guy against the cage. I'm going to take this guy down. I'm going to fight safe. I'm going to fight smart. I don't want to strike with this guy. I'm going to use my wrestling. You know, I'm a wrestler at heart, right? I'm going to use my wrestling against this guy. I could see a world where that happens. You know, this fight takes place against the cage a little bit, like it was a little bit in the Imavov fight, and I could see this fight going over. Am I going to bet the over, though? No, because that could end very, very poorly. So I like nothing in this fight. I don't like a side. I don't like a total. I don't like anything in this fight. I'm staying away. I'm going to sit back and watch, and we'll see what happens. Is Haas's chin going to hold up? Is the big question here, and I'm not sure. From a drafting perspective, though, that's where I'm getting my exposure to this fight, because at these price tags, it's hard to see, you know, whoever wins this fight not scoring well. With Haas, he has first round knockout upside. He has potential wrestling upside, control time upside. You know, if somebody's winning a decision, it's Haas. You know, he's 7,900. I don't mind that. And then Bruno Ferreira, I think his path is probably a first round knockout. So from a drafting perspective, I love this fight. From a betting perspective, I hate this fight. But this fight, like I said, it's the talk of the town. This has to be like the most bet on fight of the week. It's crazy. People are trusting the chin of Phil Haas. And like I said, I get it. But I mean, I don't have the balls to do something like that. That's like betting on, you know, Shannon Ross. That's like betting on Malcolm Gordon, which, by the way, we do get Malcolm Gordon next week, and Jimmy Flick. Both those guys not durable. So yeah, I can't do it. If I bet on Phil Haas, I couldn't watch the fight, to be honest. All right, Tyler says Phil Haas is super talented, but how can you trust this shin? I can't, man. Against a power puncher, I can't do it. I stole some major CLV, getting Bruno back at plus 180 on DraftKings, right? DraftKings, yep. He opened up as a dog on DraftKings, plus 180. Heck yeah, you did your job and more. Victor says, I would never bet on Phil Haas, regardless of opponent, skill difference, advantages, value, nothing. It doesn't matter. He's just that guy. Yeah, maybe if he was fighting somebody that didn't have power, but even then, like I said, Kyle Dawkins is hurting this guy. Imavov's hurting this guy, so I don't know. I can't do it. I think these two will be tentative and gun shy after brutal knockout losses. Yeah, I could see that, Blumdog. I could see it. Call me crazy, but I think it goes to decision at a decent clip. I don't agree with a decent clip, but I could see it going to decision, and the odds are huge, like you said. The fight doesn't go opened up at minus 1,400. So money has came in on the overs, and the fight goes. I don't hate it as like a crazy sprinkle there. I stopped betting on Phil after he killed Mike Chris Curtis bet. Yeah, he was a big favorite there. He was looking good up until he got caught. We got Gas Station Sushi. What is up, Gas Station Sushi? What are the two most live underdogs on this card? It was Jim Miller. It was Jim Miller last week. Now he's a decent sized favorite. Preston Parsons isn't even a dog anymore. That fight's a pick'em. I don't know. I think Felipe Bunes could be super live. There's not a ton of dogs I like, though. Lapis maybe live. I don't know. I'd say Bunes. I don't know, man. I guess Bautista, just because that's a closely lined fight, but I do like Simone there. I don't think there's a lot of live dogs I like. I feel like one of these crazy dogs is going to pull off the upset, but I don't know which one's going to. So I don't know. It's a tough week for underdogs. Next week, I like a couple dogs actually. I think I'm picking 3 or 4 underdogs next week as of now. It should, but we've seen crazier things happen. I could see these guys, like Blomdog said, maybe fighting a little bit tentative, fighting a little bit cautious because they did get brutally knocked out last time. Uh, Phil Hawes versus Jake Paul. I could see that, dude. Yeah, Jake Paul versus Phil Hawes. I could see that. Hawes by decision is tasty. Yeah, it was something crazy earlier in the week, but I think it got bet down a little bit. It's not as bad as betting on Shannon Ross. Believe it or not, Phil Hawes has actually been finished in the UFC, I think, more than Shannon Ross. Shannon Ross got finished, I think, 3 times, and Hawes has been finished 4 times between. Actually, I think it's a tie. I think they're tied 4 times each between Contender Series and UFC. So I don't know. I don't know. I've never seen Bunes fight where his strengths are like his wrestling. Yeah, he needs to wrestle here, in my opinion. If he does, he could potentially win. If not, probably gets out volumed, maybe even finished late. All right, we'll move on to the next fight. We got Ricky Simone going against Mario Bautista. Good fight here, and a fight where I do like Simone. This line has opened up at -1 or -225, and Ricky Simone was sitting at -145 for a couple days or like a week, and now he's -175. I like Ricky Simone here, but what worries me here is, maybe the durability of Ricky Simone. Ricky Simone is a guy that has been finished in 3 of his 4 losses, 2 knockout losses. And, I guess what maybe is holding me back is I still have PTSD of the Ricky Simone versus Uriah Faber fight. It was a long time ago. I was on vacation and I was looking good. I was looking real good that night from a DraftKings perspective. Ricky Simone, I think he was like 9,500. He's a big favorite against Uriah Faber. I was looking good, feeling good. And I'm like, okay, this is an easy win back in 2019. 2019. And then, I'm watching the fight at my hotel, and Simone proceeds to go out there and get finished in 46 seconds by Uriah Faber. And I think maybe that's what's holding me back from Ricky Simone, right? Which it's always going to be in the back of my head. Like, this guy got knocked out by 40-year-old Uriah Faber. It makes no sense. I'm not sure what happened, but it did happen. Coming off of a knockout loss against Song Yadong as well. So maybe the durability of Ricky Simone scares me a little bit, but stylistically, I think it's a very winnable fight for him. I feel like he can go out there and get takedowns and a lot of them. We saw Bautista get taken down 4 times and controlled by Blackshear. Perrin took down Bautista a little bit as well. Bautista 56% takedown defense. And what really sticks out to me with Simone is some of these, these wrestling numbers from him. This is a guy in Simone who's landing almost 6 takedowns per 15 minutes, which has to be like, those have to be like the best, some of the best numbers in the UFC. I can't really think with a sample size like that. Like, this guy's a ton of fights. To average almost 6 takedowns per 15 minutes is just unheard of. But he has great cardio. He can go out there and wrestle. He can go out there and push a pace. It's just the durability does worry me a little bit. That's kind of the one thing in the back of my head. But yeah, I like Simone here. I like him a lot from a DraftKings perspective. He's probably one of my favorite plays on DraftKings at 8,600 because if he does win, it means he's going out there, he's getting takedowns, he's getting control time. And in a decision win, I think Ricky Simone can put up one of the best scores on the slate just with the amount of takedowns he's going to get here in a win, as long as his chin does hold up. But yeah, I think Simone's the better wrestler, and I think this is going to be a fight that takes place on the ground. Give me Ricky Simone here to get it done. I think the line's about right. I mean, -175, it seems about right to me. Nothing I'm running to the window for, but I like Simone here to get it done. In terms of like a prop, like I'm not going to mess around with like a decision, knockout, or sub because Simone, I do lean towards decision, but Batista's been knocked out and Bautista has been submitted. So I don't know. I could see any method there. So if I was to bet, I'd probably just take the Simone money line. But at -175, it's not really something to run to the window for. But great fight regardless. I'm looking forward to this fight from a fan. 2 guys that I'm extremely high on. Should be a very, very fun fight nonetheless. Martin says Bunes has good jiu-jitsu. He does. He does. Striking's all right, but he doesn't have the cardio to hold that steady pace throughout 3 rounds. Agreed. He doesn't have good wrestling, and he doesn't really try to wrestle all that much as well. But he did have a full camp, whereas Josh Fan is stepping in on short notice for Denise Bondar. Denise Bondar is terrible. That would have been funny to see Bondar get finished by Bunes. Jason saying Simone, Bautista fight of the night. Simone should win by decision. Agree. I could see both. It was definitely an early stoppage. It definitely was. I agree. But still, the fact that he got knocked out, it just wasn't a good look. Potential fights to go the distance. Simone Bautista and Boser, Lapis, I think, are the two most likely. And then fights that I think could also go the distance, maybe a little more sneaky. Josh Van, Bunes, I'm taking Van by decision. Other than that, I think we get a lot of finishes. Maybe Ankalaev Walker could be like a terrible, boring fight that nobody does anything, and that can go to decision. Other than that, I think we do get a lot of finishes this Saturday. All right, let's keep moving on. The new co-main event. Gabriel Benitez going against Jim Miller. And yeah, Jim Miller, very popular underdog this will. He was a very popular underdog. Now he's minus 150, which is a little concerning considering Jim Miller is 40 years old. And this matchup is a little tricky because it's a striker versus striker matchup pretty much, right? Like Jim Miller, obviously he's a black belt. He's an incredible grappler. He doesn't wrestle at all. He doesn't wrestle, especially nowadays. He's not wrestling. What Jim Miller is doing though, nowadays, he's knocking guys out. And that's kind of where I'm leaning. Benitez, he has not shown to be durable. He's been finished in his last several losses. I think Jim Miller by knockout is very much on the table, but Benitez is probably going to be the better striker here, which is a little bit scary. But Jim Miller, he's 40 years old, but he's still shown to be very durable. Take a look at Jim Miller. Like the last time Jim Miller got finished in a fight was a long time ago by a guy named Charles Oliveira. That was back in 2018. The last time he was knocked out was against Donald Cerrone 10 years ago. 10 years ago. So, yeah, I mean, one guy's shown to be durable, and that's Jim Miller. One guy's shown to not be durable, and that's Gabriel Benitez. Benitez knocked out by Onama, knocked out by Billy Q, knocked out by Sadiq Youssef. So, I'm kind of leading Jim Miller knockout here, but it's not something I love. And from a prop perspective, I'm tempted on the under 1.5 rounds is plus money. The reason being is you take a look at Jim Miller. When Jim Miller is winning fights, it is under 1.5 rounds. Against Jesse Butler, first round. Donald Cerrone, second round, but went under. Nicholas Moda, second round, but went under. Eric Gonzalez, second round, but went under. Roosevelt Roberts, first round. Clay Guida, first round. Jason Gonzalez, first round. Alex White, first round. His last 8 or 9 wins have came under 1.5 rounds. But with that said, though, is Benitez going to go out there and finish Miller under 1.5 rounds? So I think what I might rather do is maybe bet a Jim Miller under 1.5 round prop or Jim Miller to win in round 1 or round 2. But I'll have to see what the price is on that. But the under 1.5 has caught my eye because if Jim Miller is going to win this fight, which a lot of people think so, it's probably going to be under 1.5 rounds. It's going to be early. So under 1.5 is kind of where I'm looking at. We'll see where the price is. Yeah, still plus money everywhere. That's a spot that kind of sticks out. If you like Miller, you probably like that. From a Draftkings perspective, I like Miller here. Finish upside. I could see a club. I think a club and sub could be in play, but just counting on Jim Miller to wrestle something you really can't do. Landing about a takedown and a half for 15 minutes. But maybe he does. I mean, Benitez does not have the best takedown defense, so we'll see. But I do like Jim Miller here to get the job done regardless. Confidence ranking, Van, Nolan, Aosta, Ankalaev. Number 1, Aosta by a mile. Number 2, Ankalaev. Number 3, number 3, these two are low confidence in both Van and Nolan, I think. If I had to pick one or the other, I'd go... I don't know. I'd say maybe Aosta, Ankalaev, Nolan, then Van, just because Nolan's going against Moda, who's kind of sucks, and then Van, he's going against Bunes, who I do think is good. I think Bunes is good. I think all 4 of these guys up on the screen do win. I like Bautista. I like him too. I'm just not sure I like this matchup for him. Blomdog saying Jim Miller, round 1 or round 2, super confident. He steamrolls Mowgli and is on 300. Handpicked matchup. I don't know if it's a handpicked match. Like a handpicked matchup is Jesse Butler, right? Like Benitez is not a Jesse Butler, but still, I think Jim Miller is getting Benitez at the right time. 35 years old, long layoff durability, waning a little bit. So I think it's a good matchup for him. Fading Mexicans, Prince, Money, Miller all day. Mexicans just aren't built for this one. Then you're gonna love the UFC Mexico card, Melon, in a couple months. Love Jim Miller to win. Jim Miller KO 1-2 on FanDuel. The only thing that worried me is like a club and sub. I'd want like the 1 and 2 in just general, but I'm picking KO. Yeah, basically the minute. I agree. All right, guys, we're doing great on time. Thank you all so much for watching. If you guys have not liked already, be sure to smash the like button. I'm really glad to be back for 2024. We have the main event, the worst fight on the card, Magomed Ankalaev, Johnny Walker. And yeah, not much to say here. We got a rematch. Not much has really changed. Like the last time I picked Ankalaev to win by decision, thought he would implement some wrestling, and he started to do that a little bit in their first fight. The striking was competitive up until Johnny Walker may or may not have gotten hurt. Not sure if he was acting or what. It's hard to tell with Johnny Walker. The guy's a crazy person. But yeah, and then Ankalaev pushed him against the cage. He took him down, tried to get to his back, and then he kneed him illegally. And then the fight turned into a no contest, which probably should have been like a DQ. But outside of that, I mean, Ankalaev is a big favorite for a reason. Johnny Walker is KO or bust. If you like Walker, probably bet him by KO. Walker's not winning a decision. He's not probably winning by submission. Walker by KO is how he'd get it done. But Ankalaev's never been knocked out. I don't really think I've ever seen him hurt either. The only time he has been finished was against Paul Craig with like a last second sub. So yeah, I don't like the line minus 550, way too wide, but he has a path to win in multiple ways. He could knock out a chinny Johnny Walker. He could take him down and control him for 25 minutes. He can ground and pound him. Just a lot of ways to win. But laying minus 550 in a light heavyweight fight, it's not something I really want to do against the guy in Johnny Walker who's 6'6" with an 82-inch reach and a ton of power. So I'm just going to sit back and watch this one. Me and Weezy were talking about the over 1.5 rounds on Stat Diggers on Sunday, and that was sitting at minus 140. And if you guys know me, you guys know that I very rarely bet overs, which is something I'm going to try to do more of this year is bet some overs, right? Was looking at that over 1.5 at minus 140. It got smashed. It is now minus 175, minus 180. And at that price, I'm okay with just passing because this fight very well could end under 7.5 minutes. It all depends how these guys are going to attack this fight. Which Johnny Walker is going to show up? Is it going to be like the crazy madman Johnny Walker? Or is it going to be like the new and maybe improved Johnny Walker where he's taking his time? He's a lot more cautious. He's not getting knocked out. He's being safe in there. So I'm kind of leaning towards this being a boring, terrible fight to kick off 2024. But the rest of the card I think is awesome. But this main event, I can't get behind it. I'm not a big fan of Ankalaev. He's an incredible fighter. One of the best fighters in the light heavyweight division. Just so boring. I mean, this guy's about as boring as you can get. I mean, this could be terrible. I'm not sure how they gave these guys another main event after the Ankalaev-Blachowicz fight, which was just a brutal fight. And then don't even make me bring up Johnny Walker, Thiago Santos, just a brutal. These guys have been in some brutal main events, and we're getting them together here. So this fight could be awful, or it could be like an early finish. I'm not sure, but I will not be touching it. The pick is Ankalaev, though. And then pretty much fading this fight on DraftKings outside of some Walker shares, 6,800. Like if he wins, it's a finish. I don't mind some Johnny Walker. Ankalaev, I just don't think he scores well on DK. He doesn't do anything. Like to score well on DK, you got to do stuff, and he just doesn't do anything. He's so good, but he just doesn't do anything. So yeah, not a big fan of this fight. Worst main event? No. It's not the worst main event. It's bad, but there's been some very bad main events in the past. Last year we had a couple of just very bad main events, just terrible main events. I think this is bad, but it could be worse. It could be much, much worse, I think. Ankalaev by decision. Walker has to knock him out early to win. I see it the same way. DB saying hit the like button. We got 160 viewers, barely 40 likes. Yeah, let's get those likes up. Do appreciate all of them. Magomed Ankalaev sub round 3, 60-1 plus 6,000. Okay. Now we're talking, Melon. Now we're talking. If he gets to the back of Johnny Walker, maybe he does sub him. Are these two rewarded with the main event after that debacle? Ankalaev sub 2-3 is super juicy. Yeah, I didn't even look at the sub 2-3 props. Now you guys got me thinking. Now you guys got me thinking. Does Ankalaev have many subs though? I can't imagine he does. None. He has no subs, so maybe that's why they're juicy. But yeah, more of a TKO guy, more of a nothing guy. I don't know what this guy does. Online gambling finally got to Delaware right before Christmas. Heck yeah. Yeah, a lot of these states are finally starting to legalize gambling, which is awesome. A lot of these states finally. I think even Florida's doing some hard rock gambling stuff as well. So yeah, which is really good to see. Yeah, that came to mind, Melon. They announced it today that Rose Namajunas and Amanda Ribas is going to main event a fight card in 2024. They're giving Rose another main event after the Carla Esparza disaster. I mean, that was a disaster. But yeah, so there's that. That'll be happening. Appreciate you, Victor. Best of luck to you tomorrow. We got Mushroom in the building. What is up, Mushroom? One more sleep. Yes, sir. It's finally here. It is finally here. Do you think California will legalize online betting? They will eventually. It's just when will they do it? It could be a while. I think eventually all states will legalize betting, but it's just kind of like a when. When will it happen? California probably has a while to go. We'll see though. And what are the salary? The salaries are for DraftKings. It's a daily fantasy sport game. I've been playing DraftKings since I've been able to, since I was 18. So that's what those are. But yeah, guys, thank you so much for hanging out with me on a Friday. Be on the lookout for the betting breakdown video. I have no bets yet because my biggest bet got canceled. But I will be adding some things. I'm looking at maybe like a Miller round 1, round 2, or the under 1.5 at plus money. I'm looking at Waldo Cortez Acosta by knockout. I'm looking at some type of violence in the Semelsberger Parsons fight, like the under the fight doesn't go. Maybe Parsons late sub props, they're super juicy, or Semelsberger early KO, or maybe both, sprinkle them both, see what happens. Marcus McGee by sub. I think it's there if he wants it. Like if he wants to do it, it'll be there. And then maybe some violence in the Silva Wilson fight or the Nolan Moda fight, but they're not the best prices. So something like that. So I'll be adding some things, be on the lookout for the betting breakdown video, and be on the lookout for best bet tomorrow. We have a solid panel, some new guys tomorrow, got some new guys in for this year for the show. So that'll be fun. And I guess best of luck for the first card in 2024. Don't got to go crazy because it is the first card back. I know everybody wants to go crazy. I'm not. Next week, though, I do like next week better. Yeah, guys, bet smart, and we'll talk to you guys very soon. See you later.